Hi, it's Alyssa from Alyssa's Bake Shop, and today I'm going to show you how I made these St. Patrick's Day cookies. I've made your typical shamrock and rainbows before, so I wanted to try something different and make a little bit more abstract by doing the painting method. And the color palette I'm using today is a white, a very light green, a darker green, a tan, and a black. So let's get started. One thing I just want to mention is that when I do these designs and I edit them, I cut them up so that the videos show the cookie designs in order, but in real time, they're actually not done in order just because you have to allow drying times for certain designs, and I don't really like to waste time, so while one design is drying, I jump to the next one. This design is a beer mug, and I put down the first tan color. While the tan color was still wet, I went in and I just added some little round circles just to make it look kind of like bubbles. Then I let that dry for about 5 minutes. I came back to it and I added some white icing and I started just outlining our mug. And I just wanted to make sure that the tan was dry enough so that the white would not run into it, because that will happen. In real time, I'd actually probably let the tan dry more for like an hour, but I really wanted to just get these cookies done. Then with the really thick consistency icing, I went in and just kind of went crazy to make it look like foam, and that was actually a lot of fun. I definitely need to use thicker consistency icing more in my decorating. I added some sugar crystals, and one thing about me is I love sprinkles, I love glitter. It just gives it some extra little cute details. Then I used a dark brown food gel and I lightly painted over it just to make it look kind of like those lines that are in a beer mug, and it definitely added to the dimension of the whole cookie. I was a bit torn about what to do for the 3-leaf clover just because I wanted to do something different, but I really like things to be simplistic. I mean, that's pretty much my style for the most part. And also you can see that I'm kind of decorating it a little weird. I'm sort of stopping and starting that border. I find that when I do that, it just helps me to really focus on one round part at a time. And then I don't have to use my scribe tool as much to just really get those super round edges. When you are making videos and social media, the aesthetically pleasing part is really important. So I think that's something I'm going to have to get better at, because I'm just really used to decorating a certain way. One of the things I like to do when I make cookie sets is use very similar colors or use just different shades of the same color. So these first clovers were that light green, and then the other clovers were a bit more darker green. I feel it just adds some extra dimension and interest when looking at a set. I decided to make the leaves look a little bit more 3D just by tracing them individually with some more icing. When you work with icing, sometimes things happen, and as you can see, it broke right there. So don't freak out, just take a scribe tool, wipe it off very carefully, and then just keep on going. I think in order to do this design to have it look the best, you need that first layer of icing to be very set in order for the pattern on top not to sink in. And of course, I couldn't help but add some shiny stuff to it, so I just used my metallic luster dust and I mixed it with some vodka, just put it on a brush and just kind of flicked it with my finger, and that's how you can make some random gold flecks. Now we have our pots of gold, and I didn't actually have a pot of gold cookie cutter, and even if I did, I don't think I would have used it because I really wanted the pots of gold to be very small, and as you can see, I even have some mini baby ones, so I just used the base of a bunny cookie cutter, because you never know, you can use one cookie cutter to make another cookie cutter. I'm using some edible brushes, and I just used some dark gray food dye, and what I'm going to do is just paint over the dried cookie. You definitely want to make sure that your first base layer is dry, because when you're painting, it's really easy to press down too hard. Even if you're trying to be super careful, when frosting is not dry, it's really easy to break through that really thin crust. I also painted my little baby pots of gold, and then I just set these aside to dry for about 10 minutes, and then I had to put on the coins that we're going to use. So I used that really thick icing consistency again and just kind of messily put it on randomly, because I knew that we're just going to dump a bunch of sprinkles on top, so it doesn't have to be perfect. And I always dump sprinkles into a bowl because it makes for way more better cleanup. We'll go back to those pots of gold, but first I wanted to start on the rainbow, so I just outlined it and I'm going to fill it in with white icing just so that we have a nice base in order to paint on our colors. I got all of the colors prepared by just putting them on a plate, and then I used a flat brush to just sort of start building up the color right onto the cookie. I decided not to wipe off the brushes in between because I was okay with the colors blending a little bit. I thought that that would look very nice. I do have to say, I love Americolor food gel. It's one of my favorite brands of all time, but I was trying these new colors where they have shimmer already added into the food color, and I have to say, I just really didn't like the consistency of them, and they were not very opaque, so I'm gonna have to pass on those. Whenever you're painting on a cookie, you want to make sure that you have time for the gel to dry. That's important because you don't want to take a bite into the cookie and then your mouth is stained from the color. I love painting on cookies. It's more artsy and rustic, and it's almost like watercolor paint. And then I decided to add some lines right on top of that because I just wanted to add in a little more 3D effect for our rainbow. So I went over the clouds as well. And then here I'm adding the vodka and I'm adding the luster powder, and that's how you make your metallic shimmer. You want to make sure that you always start off with a little less vodka because it's easier to have less than more. What can I say? I love the gold. I love the shiny. I honestly don't think that I can make cookies without having some type of shine. And then we jump back to our pots of gold, and I'm just doing the same thing. I'm using the luster dust, and I'm just going over the confetti sprinkles, and then that way they look like pots of gold at the end of the rainbow. And if anyone is concerned, the vodka does evaporate. Then I decided to make it 3D, and I added the mini pot of gold onto the rainbow, and the cookie set was complete. I would definitely call this a rustic, abstract St. Patrick's Day cookie set. I know that's a lot of adjectives, but I feel like there's just a lot of techniques going on. But this is one of my favorite things to do, which is just to experiment. And even if you don't like how it turns out, then you can just eat it. And that's it for this video. Happy St. Patrick's Day, and thank you guys for watching.